I call the Honourable Annette King.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. It's been a very interesting first and second reading of this bill, because I've noticed that the Minister of Health has spent a lot of his time scuttling in and out, gathering evidence against the previous government, rummaging through the Ministry of Health's drawers to try and find anything that he can throw at the opposition. And I would say to the Minister, he might have been better off spending his time providing us with information about this bill before he brought it into this House. And I want the Minister to tell us why the regulatory impact statement wasn't available until today, and why so much of it has been blacked out. Why the public of New Zealand and the people and members of this House who rely on a regulatory impact statement to have an idea what the bill is, faced pages after pages after pages blanked out, taking away information. Everybody knows that a regulatory impact statement is there to assist the House, to have a debate about an issue. And the Minister must have approved a regulatory impact statement that took out vital information that we could have used in this House, his own members could have used. So I would like to know why we face... I can't remember a regulatory impact statement like that. A regulatory impact statement, for example, on better local government was a real shocker against the Minister of Local Government at the time, Nick Smith, but he didn't go through it and cross out the bad bits he didn't like. I'll give him credit for that. He allowed the information to be put there for us to argue against, for the Select Committee to look at. But to the Minister, this isn't even going to a Select Committee. Why was there no effort made, as was offered last year by members on the opposition, to work with him on this issue? Because, as he said when he started off in a very steady way, saying this was a very complex issue spanning over 20 years, and then as the debate went on, had his members becoming more narrow in his own speeches about, let's throw a bit of blame round now. 5 years he has been the Minister. 5 years the Minister of Health. 5 years he could have done something, so there's no good holding up pieces of paper saying we didn't do anything, because National were the government 9 years before we became the government. And did they do anything on this issue? No, they did not. They made no decisions on it, and this Minister has been forced to make decisions that he didn't really want to make. And he can hide his face behind paper, and he ought to hide his face behind paper, because what you get out of his press statement, I think, is very interesting indeed. What he actually says is that the public of New Zealand expect family members to look after their own family. Well, in the main they do, but there is one part of our society where we say we need to give particular care. It is those who are not able to look after themselves. So the bottom line for this Minister has been all about money. And when you look at the options, the little bit of the paper that we can read, you see that he did have some choices. And I happen to know that the choices that the Ministry of Health are providing to him at the moment on carer policy, he doesn't like at all. And he certainly didn't like the options that they put up. And why didn't he choose one of the options under option 3? Option 3C or option 2C? Because the difference in money is $17 million a year, and you would have gone from 1,600 people with disability being supported to 5,400. And would that have been such a huge impost on the government's coffers? Certainly not when they can throw money around for private schools. They can throw money around to advertise selling off our state assets at $1 million for an advertising campaign. It was about priorities. Why could he not have settled for an option that would have been a lot more expensive, but not greatly so when you look at the entire budget, health budget? I'd also like to ask the Minister, what consultation did he have with those who are the carers? Because we happen to receive this morning information from those who do caring, and they say that they had very little involvement at all. They didn't engage in the carers, in the policy design or system. Why not, Minister? In fact, you had one person on the technical advisory group, Mr Chairman.
The Honourable Annette
One
King.
person on the technical advisory group who was only allowed to respond to a series of questions from the Ministry. That comes from the carers themselves. No good shaking your head, Minister, and denying it. They happen to know what happened to them. They happen to know what consultation they had. He's calling them a liar. I don't believe the carers of New Zealand are liars. That is what happened to them. There was very little opportunity for them to look at this policy at all. And in fact, I believe it has been so rushed. It is why the regulatory impact statement has not been properly completed. The Minister does not need to rush it. Tell this House why, when it is implemented in October this year, he needs to put it through urgency in this House. Why not try to work across this House and get agreement on it so it could be put in place for the future? Not something that he decides to do, but it is very much the way this Minister works. He knows everything. He knows everything. He is an authority on everything. He doesn't need the assistance of the carers of New Zealand. He doesn't need the assistance of members of this House because he is all knowledgeable. I have to say it's also very disappointing, and maybe he'd like to tell us why, when they are going to be paid, they get to be paid the minimum wage. The Ministry did not recommend the minimum wage. They recommended around $16. So why has the Minister said that it will be the minimum wage that will be paid? Why are these caregivers to be paid less than other caregivers? Are they less competent? Are they less important? Are the issues they face less troublesome for them? So would the Minister like to respond to why they would be paid a minimum wage? Maybe the Minister would also like to tell the House about the operational details of this policy, because the operational details of this policy, Minister, is it correct, will not be ready till September this year? Can the Minister answer that? Will the operational issues not be ready till September this year? Because that's what your office said yesterday, Mr Minister. They won't be ready till September, so we won't even know how it's going to operate. Perhaps the Minister could tell us what he classifies as very high and high needs. What sort of disability will be included in the high to very high needs? I'd like him to explain exactly what, the sort of person who would have high to very high needs. Would they be people with physical or neurological disability? Would they be people with muscular dystrophy? What has he decided will be those with very high needs? I believe the people of New Zealand deserve answers to questions like this today. They need to understand this is the only opportunity of debate on this bill that is going to affect many people's lives, and today is it, and the next hour or two is the time allowed. That is it. That is all this House has. And instead of spending his time rummaging around trying to attack the opposition, answer some questions about the policy. Put some answers on the table, Minister, instead of just playing your usual game of being a know-all and wanting to play the political game on every issue. Could have worked with the opposition, could have worked with all parties. You've heard it from the Greens, you've heard it from New Zealand First, and we had a statement put out last year saying we would work on this issue. There was not even a phone call. When did we hear about this? Yesterday. When did we get the bill? Yesterday. When did we get the regulatory impact statement? Today. When did we get the Attorney General's report on it? Today. That is the level of consultation and information that has been provided to this House. And to treat the House with that sort of contempt is just not good enough. But let's face it, what else would you expect? What else would you expect from a government that has become so arrogant that they know exactly what everyone needs and believes they know what people who are disabled need? Don't worry about it, they know. Well, they don't. And they have been asked to address an issue, and what does a person who has got two disabled adult children, a 75-year-old man looking after his own children who are 45 and 43, he thought he was going to get a half-decent scheme. What does he say? He got a half-baked one. And that is the problem, a half-baked scheme, because the Minister was not prepared to take the time to consult properly with the carers, to work with other parties, but to shove it through this House under budget legislation and urgency. So, Mr Chairman, it is just not good enough.
I recognise the honourable member, Catherine Delahaye.